What's up, y'all? It's your girl Tati. I am back with another one. It's been a little minute. Um, your girl's been in the books studying. I do have some good news that I cannot share at this moment, but just know I got some good stuff coming up for myself and something good to share with y'all. But in honor of it being, what's today, February 13th? Valentine's Day is tomorrow. I thought, why not make a video for my single people out there? Okay. So currently I am single, right? And Valentine's Day, if I had been single on a certain Valentine's Day, I would feel kind of like bad about it. But I don't really care anymore. Like, who cares? Who cares for real? Like at this big age. Um, just on my journey of like self love and self worth, I kind of built tough skin towards these type of holidays, but I still wanted to make a video for like my lover girls, boys, they thems of the world, and just let y'all know that you are not alone for one. And for two, how do you get over the one who got away? Right? And I'm sure everybody, if not, you're lucky, but I'm sure most people have experienced like the one who got away at least once in their lifetime. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're the one who got away. Me, for instance, I've been kind of like, how would you say you're the one who got away, right? But sometimes you really just know you that girl, right?
You cannot compete where you don't compare. Like, it's really levels to this shit.
Not to toot my own horn, I would say I was on both sides at least once in my life. Pretty much is the one who got away. How I define that as somebody who could have been the one, but I low key messed it up type of thing, right? That would be just a general definition of the one who got away. Okay. So let's get into it. I'm gonna break this down into steps because I'm a person, I like to think about things in steps. Like I have to break things down so I can see it and be able to take action, because it is something that you have to like consciously do, right? And then also time passes kind of helps, heal the soul. But for today, we're gonna break this down for y'all, right? So let's get into it. I have a really bad habit of ruminating, and sometimes I could fall into limerence. And I had to really dig deep and see, why am I feeling these ways, Because it's not healthy. For one, ruminating, if you don't know what ruminating is, it's kind of like the habit of thinking over a situation over and over and over, right? Like you think about that embarrassing moment that happened in the fifth grade, right? It keeps you up at night. That could be ruminating. Um, or you think about the love that you could have had and you just weren't emotionally equipped for it. That could be ruminating, right? And sometimes we go through these periods for a long time, and that's kind of like limerence that I'm talking about. So there is limerence and then there's love, right? Limerence for me is kind of like very much rooted in unhealthy ways of thinking and habits, right? Limerence is, it can get, I don't want to, I hate to put myself into that category, but maybe so. It's like you get overly caught up on somebody, right? And thinking about what could have been type of thing. For me, I would say I ruminate a lot because I could be a perfectionist and I don't like getting things wrong. Like, okay, that sounds extreme, right? But when you're a perfectionist, you're also low key a people pleaser too. Like, it's kind of like some crossover. So I don't like feeling like I was the bad guy or I was the person who caused something to not work. If you get what I'm saying, right? So I have a really bad habit of that. And as I've come to mentally progressed, I realized the one who got away oftentimes isn't about the person. It could really be about the situation at hand, the feelings you felt with them, the connection y'all had, more so the things that made up y'all's connection versus the person themselves. And sometimes it do be the person, right? And sometimes if we're not emotionally mature enough or just at the right point in our life, sometimes we could throw away a good thing, right? And I think it's important to have that self awareness because I'm a person who says rejection is redirection, right? But you gotta know when to say when. Like, especially when it comes to romantic relationships. Yeah, there's like over what 2 billion people in the world, right? So there's options and there's a lot of fish in the sea. But if you find yourself in a situation over and over again where you're losing good people, it wouldn't hurt to look deep inside. A lot of the times, the issues we face when it comes to relationships, whether romantic, platonic, parental, like any type of relationship, a lot of times it's based on inner childhood wounds that weren't healed or trauma. A lot of times it's things that we don't even realize affects us. Okay, so I'm a psych major, right? So I know about the attachment styles. I know what attachment style I am. I tend to be, I would say, anxious avoidant, and then I get distant as well. But I'm working towards becoming a secure attachment style, right? That's the healthiest one that you would want to be. But yeah, I realized I was an avoidant. And in the past, I've had people that were secure, and it just, I don't know, for the avoidant brain, it doesn't always make sense for real. Like, how are you just okay with things just being, you know? Check your attachment style for one. I would say that's my first tip. Okay, so let's get into the steps though. Step one, probably the hardest step, I would say. Really, really, really just take things for what they are. When I've been in the thick of like a breakdown of a relationship, whether we're actually together or just talking, dating, whatever, whatever, accepting things for what they are, who wants to do that? Like, accept things for what they are, but what happened to all those months we spent or those years we spent? Some of our situations be lasting a little longer than they should, but really, really, really just take things for what they are. And I know that sounds so like, what does that mean? What happens to that time? Right? It's like you feel like you invested all your time into something and it just goes poof. So that could be a hard thing to accept, but sometimes you really do have to accept things for what they are. I guess I'll tell my story about like my one who got away. So there was this girl, and I feel like that's how everybody's like villain origin story starts. Is there was this girl. Okay, so some years ago, I was getting to know this girl, right? And I would say honestly, she was kind of perfect. Like not perfect as an individual, but like I think perfect for me, right? Because nobody's perfect, but it just made a lot of sense as to why we even kind of like found one another in the first place. Um, I would say she was a little bit more. She was definitely more secure than I was. Um, but yeah, long story short, some things happened. I kind of sabotaged it. Um, just because I was not okay with, how I say how some people are just okay with being and letting things flow. I'm a person who likes to have like, ugh, it's so cringy when you talk about yourself out loud. Like, what? I'm not perfect, but I'm a person who likes to have like a little bit of control not over a person, but of how a situation is gonna go, right? And I had to really, really break that down for myself because at the end of the day, if something's supposed to be, it's gonna be regardless, right? Unless you mess it up, like I did, honestly. Like I said, you can mess up a good thing sometimes. Anyways, I ended up like, in short, becoming very cold towards her. Things weren't going my way. Um, to be completely honest, I kind of shut things down because I'm a person. If something's gonna end, it's gonna be on my terms, type of thing. And I know that sounds so bad, right? But I know I'm not the only one, right? But we're gonna take accountability, right? So boom. I'm a person who likes to kind of just dead things. So let me just get ahead of, let me get ahead of the game and just dead it. And maybe I can sleep at night because I know I'm the one who did the deed. It sounds so like wild when you say it, but yeah, I ended up in turn sabotaging things rather than just seeing things through with her. And pretty much we don't talk to this day. Like since that happened, we don't talk to this day. And that's what really led into my limerence and ruminating. Because although I was cold towards said woman, I really did care about her. It takes more in you to be vulnerable and authentically yourself than to put up this wall and act like nothing phases you. Because, like, are you a robot? First of all, like, what are you? From my standpoint, all of us, we have feelings, right? And it's all about how you communicate. Any relationship can break down due to a lack of communication, right? So that's something you got to work on. If your communication skills are not there, work on that, please, because your relationships, they depend on it. Maya Angelou, favorite quote, also a little cliche because everybody likes to use it now. But when people show you who they are, believe them, kind of relates to the accept things for what they are. You could be that person who they had to believe, right? If you got a some toxic traits, sometimes we gotta, come to terms with our mess ups, taking things at face value rather than trying to spin it. That just caused delayed grief, right? Accept things for what they are. It is a hard pill to swallow. But once you get to that point, just accept things for what they are. Step two is getting back into your bag. Like working on yourself, getting back into your bag. That kind of helps you build up a confidence about yourself, right? To get back out there when you're ready, right? So by working on yourself, it really is depending on like what your life looks like. It could be going into the gym, um, you know, drinking more water, eating healthier, getting back into the hobbies you fell off on. Work on yourself, self care, working on your skin, getting your nails done, things like that, things that make you feel good about yourself and kind of center yourself back to who you are, right? Because sometimes, whether we realize it or not, you can get lost in like a connection, depending on if it's healthy for you or not, right? You could get a little lost. So it's important to bring yourself back to you. When you look at the mirror, you want to be able to recognize that person, right? And you want to be feeling good about what you see in the mirror. And do that even when you're with somebody, right? Because a relationship isn't 50-50, right? And I'm not talking about bills. I'm not talking about the corny 50-50 stuff, right? I mean, who you are. Don't show up as 50% and looking for your other 50%. Y'all got to come together already as whole human beings, or at least on the way there, right? You should not be looking for somebody to fill some type of void that you have, because the same thing is just going to keep happening and happening until you fill that void. And more often than not, it's going to be something that's internal. More often than not, it's some deep work you got to do before you're even emotionally like equipped to enter a new situation, right? Or even go back if you're trying to spin the block, hey, whatever, that's your business. But just make sure you show up as 100% you. So when whatever, not saying when, right? We want to speak good things into existence, right? But if unfortunately, there is a breakdown in a relationship, you want to still leave as your whole self. You don't want to lose yourself in somebody. So, yeah, make sure you're constantly working on yourself. Because when you constantly work on yourself, like, even that alone can kind of distract you from, not distract you, right? Because I don't believe that distractions are a way to heal you. But when you work on yourself, you kind of remind yourself, like, who you are, type of thing, right? When you remind yourself of who you are, can't nobody mess up your peace. Step three is getting back out there, right? You gotta get back on the saddle. Once you accept things for what they are and you work on yourself, now it's time to get back in the game, right? You gotta get back in the market. Although I said a good connection isn't easy to find, trust me when I say it is out there. When you begin to work on yourself, you start to attract like minded individuals. If you're in a low space, you're going to attract the low vibrational people. When you're working towards a higher space, you start to attract higher vibrational people. And the reason being, like, I didn't understand this at first, right? Because I was like, what do you mean I am who I attract, right? But you kind of are. Like, if you feel like you are deserving of a certain type of treatment that isn't really up to par with who you are and what you deserve for real, you gonna attract people that's not good for you. On the other hand, if you start to say no to certain connections, especially if it's just like a short time of feel good feelings, and you start to look ahead for what you want in the future, you're gonna start bringing that in, and that's something I'm working on now, because I know I have certain values that I want my partner to also have. Date up, do not date below you. Do you know how much time you could lose by dating somebody who's not up to par? Remember I said you want to look at your reflection and like what you see. If you date people that's under you, one day you're gonna look in the mirror and not even recognize yourself. So you always want to, I don't care what nobody says. I'm never the type to fall into society's expectations of having a lower standard, especially as a black woman. Like, let's be for real. Like, as black women, we kind of taught to accept things that are less than us, right? Girl, do not settle for less. Please do not settle for less, right? You always try to do the best, just like you doing that career. Do it with your relationships as well, right? The way my standards is set up going forward, I said I gotta find my equal or somebody better. We not going backwards. We only going forward. Find your equal or somebody better, right? And honestly, I'm gonna be for real. Like, I would much rather find somebody who's doing better than me. Some people get intimidated by that. Me, I am attracted to that. Like, if I find a woman who's like smarter than first of all, I like for my partner to be smarter than me because I like to learn from who I'm with, right? 'Cause I get bored easy. If you not keeping up, like one of not to rap, but one of my biggest icks is when I'm texting somebody and like it's so many grammatical errors and like typos and all that. Okay, typos I'll give you, a little bit of grace on that because I be having typos too, especially if I'm typing fast or if I'm not like paying like a fully attention to what I'm typing. But if you just don't know how to spell, like, okay, I can't do nothing with that. Like, you're gonna have to go back to school for real. Cause me, I'm not about to be your teacher. Like, I got things I got places to be, people to see. I'm not trying to worry about trying to get you up to par to like 12th grade reading level when you're like in your 30s. Like, no, we're not we're not doing that. find a good connection because they are out there, even though it's not going to be like in a blink of an eye. Sometimes life do be working like that, right? And you also have to be okay with it not happening overnight, right? But like they said, things that are worth waiting for, it's not going to come easy, right? Just like when you see people rise to stardom like quick, they be gone just as quick, if not quicker, right? So you don't want things to just like happen quickly. And if it does, lucky for you, right? Some people, I've heard of stories of people like they meet and 2 weeks later they already in a relationship, moved in together, you know? And I know that's extreme, right? Personally, I wouldn't do it, but sometimes you just know, right? And them folks be together for 10 plus years, right? Because they just know what works for them and they work for them, you know? Anyways, always make sure you date up and always be open to new connections. We're not going to let one situation stop us from finding love, right? Now, I'm saying us because, like in all my videos, I'm also talking to myself because YouTube is like a form of therapy. So when I talk to y'all, I'm also kind of like coming to my own conclusions and downloads. We're going to call this step miscellaneous, right? Because I really didn't number this step. All these steps, by the way, y'all, you would put it in whatever order, right? I just came up with a list for y'all of things that I felt like, can help you through your process of accepting things, getting over it, moving on, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, we're going to call this step miscellaneous. And that's a step where you really just want to just sit down with yourself and figure out what it is that you're so stuck on. Like, because as I said in the beginning of the video, oftentimes it's not the actual person, right? Sometimes it is, right? Oftentimes you just miss that chemistry, that connection that y'all once had, right? Once you realize what exactly it is that's fueling your desire to think about this person, ruminate, whatever, wherever you're at, right? Understand, get to the root of why you're feeling this way. All things, you want to make sure you get to the root of it because if you just like serial date, like some people do, those people who can't just be alone because they don't know how to get over the last situation and just be in their own being, they're just putting a band aid over what they really feel. So you have to dig deep and you may have some nights where you cry because you start dissecting and you realize, like, hey, that's what happened when I was. And then that is why I react to this way. You have to start to heal that. Healing your inner child is what accelerates you forward in life, right? Whether that be following your dreams, getting over certain situations, healing yourself, your soul, you have to go back to your inner child, right? Because everything starts with childhood development. And that's why, another tangent, right? That's why not everybody can be parents, right? You got to be equipped to be a parent. But yeah, I'm going to make a sidebar. I'm actually going to make a video on that soon because I want to talk about why society pressures people to have kids without even fully knowing if that person is equipped to bring kids into the world. But yeah, that's beyond the point. Just stay tuned for that video. Step 4. Yeah, I think this is step 4. Step 4 is gonna sound super cliche and probably uh completely take away everything I just said. But sometimes you may have to get under somebody new. I hate to say it, you may have to get under somebody new.
When is the wedding? They've set a date
to get over your last one. Because sometimes somebody new may be like I've had in the past where I've dated somebody and I just thought it was the end. I don't know, something about just being a queer woman and dating other women. It just makes you feel like, if especially if that's your first heartbreak, it makes you feel like it's the end of the world. It's not, but it feels like it. But sometimes you gotta get under somebody new, right? Get your spark back for one. Get under a new person and you might realize that they're better than the person you've been stuck on this whole time, right? And do that in a healthy way, or the healthiest way as possible, right? If you feel like when you go on dates with this new person and you still think about the one in the past, yeah, don't do that, right? But when you're in a good enough space, put yourself out there, right? Because I believe that in anything, when you start to put yourself out there, you could think about stuff all the time, right? But the real practice is when you actually do it. Like, so just do it again in a healthy way, because you don't want to go out and start traumatizing people, right? Like, it'd be innocent people and you're just traumatizing them for what? Because you can't get over homegirl from 2 years ago. You feel me? Like, do it with caution, please. But yeah, sometimes you do have to get back on the saddle and see about somebody new, because they might just be the one for you.
You know nothing about that. You know why? Because you a mumble rapper, Bow Wow, a mumble rapper. Lil Yachty, you don't want nothing too. Neither you niggas.
Anyways, y'all, I hope you took something from this. I know that was a lot of ranting. Like I said, I low key look. Sometimes you gotta self-diagnose yourself. I tried to get diagnosed for ADHD when I was 22, and my doctor said I was too old. And now I look at people getting diagnosed in their 40s and 50s, and I'm like, wow, I've just been out here potentially raw dogging life. But yeah, beyond the point, I hope this was sort of helpful for y'all. This is what worked for me, right? So if it don't work for you, do not blame me for it, right? Because I'm just sharing my experiences and hoping it could impact somebody else. Okay. All right. Thank y'all for watching. As always, bye.